Hi everybody, we're Jay and Lori Pyatt.
And this is a video for the women who've been betrayed, or for people out there who have been going through hard times and have been given the message, have more faith. Now, if you've heard my story, you know that for 15 years I tried doing that, and it led to a marriage where things were getting worse. Basically led to a marriage where I kind of inadvertently was being asked to enable some bad behavior. So I want to kind of give a differentiation in what to have faith for, because it was an eye-opening experience for me when I got this new understanding. And what I'm talking about is having a faith in God and having faith that my marriage is going to work out, or basically having faith that my husband was going to start treating me well. Back then, in the first 15 years, it was like I would go to the spiritual community and they would say, have more faith in God. I'd take my pain to them and, this really hurts. Well, you need to have more faith in God. Not all of them. I had some really good spiritual mentors that listened to me, but the general overall feel was I was doing something wrong by not having faith that God was going to, work this out. And eventually he did, but it wasn't just because I was sitting back doing nothing but having faith. So for me, the change came when I realized God is not coming down off his throne and making Jay do something different in his life. Jay has free will. God gives him that free will, so God knows that when he makes a change, it's for real and not because God orchestrated it. So when I realized that, I realized it's one thing to have faith in God. It's another thing to have faith that everything's going to work out well, because sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it doesn't, and actually it was a bigger faith in me to realize God's not going to fix this without Jay's help. Mm-hmm. He's not just going to magically do this for me. In very, very, very rare cases, we've seen that happen, but those people typically don't come to us because God's working it out. But that's less than 1% of the stories we've heard has that ever happened. So while it can happen, it didn't happen for me, and I know it's not happening out there for a lot of you women. So I guess for me, I would just say, understand the difference between having faith in God versus having faith that God's going to make everything work out.
Yeah. From my standpoint, what Jesus said, what he did was he came to bring us back into relationship with God. And he laid down his life and sacrificed that we could have relationship with God. He did not say, I'm going to go to the cross so that you can have relationship with each other. That's up to you. I need to take up my cross, that I can have relationship with Lori. It was up to me to humble myself before God, to humble myself with Lori. And it was not immediately my mindset to meet Lori's needs in that way. And so it was painful for her. There was a lot of waiting to see what I was going to do. And once I figured that part of it out, things started to get better. Mm-hmm. But again, Jesus' sacrifice was not to fix this relationship. It was to fix this relationship. Mm-hmm. And so I had my work to do, and I think that's true for the guys that are out there. They've got work to do, whether they're a believer or not. They need to be an active part in fixing the problem, because the women can't do it all on their own. And sitting back, I mean, honestly, that was my way of handling most of our problems, was to sit back and wait until the problem went away. Yep. As opposed to being an active part in it. Right. And that didn't really give us a great relationship. That gave us someone dealing with a lot of pain and having to ignore that, and someone who was abdicating or checked out from the relationship.
Right, right. And he brought up a really good point that's actually the foundation of the basics of rebuilding trust. We give 7 basics to rebuild trust, no matter where the woman is in her relationship or in her own healing. But the foundation for all of them is humility, which if you've seen it, you know that's the truth. But it really is a humbling that Jay had to do once he did that and maintained it, which is kind of the hard part because anybody can change for a little bit. But once he maintained it, it was we were on a whole different trajectory, and then he could do those other 7 things. If you haven't checked it out, look into it. You can find it on my website. Just look up Basics of Rebuilding Trust. Do a search for that in my website, and it should bring up a page. It's really inexpensive, but even if your husband doesn't watch it, you can watch it to look for the things to look for.
Right.
You can watch it to go, oh, he's not being humble, he's not doing this, he's not doing that. Basically, it's to know what change looks like, the foundational change, the character change, what that looks like. So back to what we were talking about, I hope this helps you understand that neither party can sit back and just go, I'm going to wait on God. I could have easily just said, okay, God, I'm just going to sit back and watch TV and wait for you to change him. I had to do some growing myself. I had to learn how to call him higher without shutting him down, which is a whole other topic. But Jay also needed to step up as well. And again, I cannot impress upon you the change that happened when I realized God's just not coming down off his throne, no matter how much faith I have. And that brings up another point. Be careful of having faith in faith. It was toward the end of that I was reminded of something I had heard over a decade before, and that is be careful of having faith in faith. And that's what I was being asked to do. I was being asked to have faith in your faith, Lori, versus having faith in God.
Right.
And for me, having faith in God was realizing sometimes it doesn't work out, but God can still give me a really good life, and that's what I want for you guys, no matter what the guy chooses.
Right. Yeah, the only thing I was going to touch on was the book of James with faith without works. Especially for the guys, they have to take an active role in this. There is no way they can sit back and do nothing and have this get fixed.
Right.
They can sit back and do nothing and the wife enjoy life anyway, and there not be a lot of fights or a lot of breakdown, but it's not going to heal the relationship.
Right. And you brought up a point that I do want to make clear. There are some women who can't act right now because there's just too much trauma. There's just too much repeated trauma. There's just too much intimidation and anger and explosions. And once she starts to act, he shuts her down with that anger.
Right.
I believe God has a different economy for you. I believe you're in the section of society that is the bent reed and the smoldering wick, that he's not going to put you out, putting things on you like you need to have more faith, and that needs to be proven through works. I've heard women say it takes faith just to get up in the morning. It takes faith just to not sleep all day.
Right.
So don't misunderstand Jay to say you need to get up and get moving, because we know that's trauma does the opposite.
Right.
Enough trauma will just take all your motivation and all, even the chemicals you need in your body to move. It takes all that away to where you're in that freeze state. And if you're in that freeze state, you're not going to be able to have a whole lot of works. So give yourself grace there. Give yourself the grace that I believe God gives you.
Right.
All right. So I guess that's all we have. We will see you in the future sometime.
Bye.
Bye.